questions that individuals have or thoughts?
I have a question about what you just asked us about ski. What did we see?
Right. Okay.
When he said it depended on their motivation.
Right.
That should apply to all of us. What is our motivation for doing this course, and
Okay.
What are we willing to do?
Okay. Okay. And so, how did Ski give up leverage? How did he lose leverage?
He passed the blame, or passed the action was going to be the action on somebody else and not himself.
Right. So he went ahead and says it depends on them. So Ski gave up leverage. Ski, did you want it? Did you intentionally give up leverage?
No, but by the same token, I didn't want to take on that I understood the motivations of the two people that are my partners. So I haven't talked to them. It's difficult for me to analyze that. If I'm just thinking strictly positive, that yeah, I'm absolutely going to do that.
So Ski's analytic personality is he's losing leverage because of his analytic energy. Questions from anyone?
Yeah.
So how do you take care of that? How do you rectify that?
First thing you got to do, Jill, is you got to recognize you're losing leverage. See, the analytic gives up so much leverage all the time, but they don't realize why they're giving it up. They don't realize the cost of giving it up. They don't realize they're giving up. They don't realize they're losing leverage. So the first thing you got to do is recognize it, and they don't. Peter, you're going to say something? Go ahead, Joe.
What do I do? I'm sorry.
What do you do as our mentor to Ski, right?
Right.
So you're trying to help. Go ahead, Peter. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, well, you have to get leverage back yourself. The question is, how do you get that back so you are confident that you're going to get the outcome that you want?
Right.
And so the language either has to change, or the product has to change. Something has to change to give you leverage back so you feel that you're going to get the outcome you want. So the question is, what is it that you need to do in order to regain that leverage?
Right, and the first thing you have to do is and Ski's he's awesome. He's a great student, so he doesn't mind me doing this. I don't think he minds me doing it. And so we all do it, and especially analytics. See, each one of the four personalities every one of the four personalities lose leverage, and they don't even realize it. They're giving it up.
I do the same thing all the time, just so I know, in that sense, I understand why Ski said what he said.
Right.
But if you're not going to accept the outcome that you may not like, then the hard part is the analytical side of your brain is to actually go to work to recognize what needs to change as opposed to just surrender.
Right. So the analytic and the amiable will tend to surrender. The driver and the expressive personality will tend not to surrender. They'll lose leverage, but it won't be in that. They'll lose leverage because they take on too much responsibility. The amiable and the analytic will take on too little, or they'll take it on improperly, incorrectly. And so, Jill, the first thing is helping. You help your our buddies Lou and Ski, so I know why Lou's not here today. And so it's the same reason he wasn't here, last week. he told me a couple weeks ago, he said, Mark, what you gave me about, like you said, bring on a virtual assistant, EVA, I did that. It was really successful. Then that person went away to college or whatever. I brought on another one, and that didn't work out. I just stopped bringing him on. You reminded, he said, that I got all my value, I got my money's worth out of Leverage just by, like the course of admission. I got everything. So he came in with very low expectations. Those expectations were met. He doesn't even have to show up again. And so Jill, you need to empower, Lou and Ski. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but how do you do that?
Well, I'm modeling it, and so I saw quickly that Ski gave up Leverage, and I'm like, yeah, Ski's giving up some. He doesn't realize he's giving up. He doesn't want to give it up. He doesn't have to give it up, but because he has what I call a brain path or a mind path. He has a certain way of thinking, and in the dimension he's in, it's created success. But when you move to another dimension, a higher dimension, what worked in one dimension will not work in another. And so you have to be able to traverse the dimensions of the two art buddies that you're mentoring, that you're helping, that you're assisting. Ski, you're thinking now?
Yeah, I believe I understand where you're going with this. I think also that if once you make the effort to start to understand, this is my opinion anyhow, once you start to understand the motivation of the people you're dealing with, you have a better chance of gaining leverage with them. But not to know them, again, I mean, at a high level, I understand what you're talking about with the leverage. As you get deeper, I think, again, maybe I'm struggling to understand at a deeper level.
Right. So how long, on average, again, the analytic hates these questions. Sometimes even analytic personalities, when I say, what's the average? And they say, well, it depends. I'm like, you don't understand the basic concept of average. Average wipes out depends. So what's the average amount of time that you need to know somebody enough? Is it an hour, a day, a week, a month, 6 months, a year? How long does it take for you to know somebody to get into a leverage position, Ski?
Well, using the personality masteries, it really shouldn't take all that long then to at least get a rough idea.
So how much time do you think before personality masteries, you're in that course right now, before you know personalities, without personality masteries, how much time will it take, do you think?
Wow. See, that's a tough one because you're dealing with your own personality issues in dealing with them. So if you're filtering them through your limitations, it could take a long time. If you're not, if you hit it just right, they're on the same level with you, and you can communicate quickly.
So could somebody translate what Ski's saying? This is what Ski's saying. He's saying, good question, Mark. I think it takes at least 7.5 hours of connecting with somebody to go ahead and probably gain that kind of rapport and trust and leverage. That's what Ski's saying on a subconscious basis, about 7.5 hours. So then my next question is, so Ski, what if you could do that in 30 minutes? What if you could do that in 14 minutes? What if you could do that in 3 minutes? What if you could do that in 17 seconds? Like, what would that do to your life?
Huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. That's why I'm going through the personality mastery.
Right. Because you see something, and so you picked up on Tom, what he said about personality mastery is the course, and then Peter jumped in, and then you jumped in, and there's more. It's like the crazy dancing man. Like when people hear people at your caliber, like Mike Radford, he should jump in too and take that course. when they hear individuals at you guys' dimensions, at you guys' levels, saying, listen, we've been around the block a few times, like we've got a few decades of experience, and and people say we're really, really smart. But this course, like, it totally changed everything in how I think. Nice.
Can I just ask a question, Mark? Okay, because I'm listening to the conversation.
Yes.
And it has to do with the subject that I'm studying now. So I just want to kind of put it in. I'm studying a subject called onboarding. Okay, how do you onboard people, and what is onboarding, and when is somebody on board? You can use onboarding by whatever. It's when your communication moves somebody to they understand the value of what you provide. That's onboarding. So she was talking, okay, I think you can get to the value that your product and services provide really quick if you can find out what the goal of a participant is in the program. What is it that you want to accomplish? What is it? And then how can you quickly deliver that value to that person? It's like setting the hook in a sales organization. And that's when you went down and you can do it really quickly. You can do that really quickly. Everybody before they invest has an emotional investment and then maybe a financial investment. But there's typically at least one and probably two investments before somebody steps across the line of commitment, emotional and financial. And so what are they, when they make those commitments, what are they trying to accomplish, and what's your value proposition in relationship to that? Because when you get that, you get people that will do the workbook.
Anyone have any questions or thoughts for Mike?
No, I think he's right on.
Any other thoughts? Does anybody know, are you reading a book or taking a course on onboarding, Mike?
I've read a bunch of stuff on it, and I'm giving a 30-minute film session, Mark, that I'm going to film it Saturday.
Okay.
And, I'm going to put it up on our website on onboarding, and then, and I'm doing it because, again, people need to have an onboarding strategy and a mapping out of onboarding. And then the questions, when the customer falls off the track, okay, you go back to the point that on the onboarding process where they fell off, and you have to start back there and bring them along again. So most people don't map out what they want people to do. So we have this seminar. So, what's the pre-seminar map? What's the map within the seminar itself? What do we want people to do in the seminar? What's the post-seminar map? If somebody signs up, what's our onboarding to get them started? What's our process of getting them engaged? What's the process of re-engaging them in another course? All those things are strategies that can be mapped out and should be mapped out, and content and questions and all that stuff needs to be done. But most people don't want to go through the pain points of mapping stuff out. But if they would map it out, okay, and follow the map, then their life would get a lot simpler.
So can you define, when you know somebody's onboarded, what was that definition?
When the value of your product, service, or organization, when your brand value, okay, of your product, services, or organizations helps them accomplish the goals and objectives that they have in their life, they're on board. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to stay on board, but at least they're on board. That your brand value proposition is moving their agenda ahead.
Interesting. Does anyone have a higher dimension definition of onboard, when somebody's onboarded? So that's one dimension of onboarding. There's higher dimensions of onboarding than that, and there's lower dimensions of onboarding than that.
I'll give you a higher dimension of onboarding.
Cool.
customer gives you a referral. That's a higher dimension.
Nice. Anyone know a higher dimension than that? So I'm reading a book, and it's Expert Secrets. This guy's a genius. And I don't use that word lightly. Like, I don't, like, the guy's a genius. And he has a word, culture, and it's C-U-L-T, all capital letters, cult. And he has studied cults, both good and bad. And so a higher definition of onboarding would be somebody would do something that they are confident in their own mind will hurt them, but they are so much on board, they trust you, they trust the integrity of the system, they trust something so much that they're going to do something even though they feel it's going to hurt them. The next higher level of that is that they're willing to go ahead and trust you or trust the system. They're so on board that they're willing to go ahead and do something that they think is going to hurt people around them. So if I think if Mike or Peter or Tom tells me to do something that's going to hurt me, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do it. It's harder if I'm like, wait a minute, they're telling me something that might hurt my wife and kids. Now, that's another higher level of being on board. Peter, I know you got to take off here. Anything you have in closing or thoughts?
Not that I can add to that, no.
Are you feeling absolutely spectacular, like blown away, like amazed, shocked, insane, like I can't believe this? Is that what you're feeling, Peter?
I think it's been, I was going to use the word fascinating, but I think it's been very constructive, particularly the discussion on onboarding we've just had.
Cool. Does anybody know why Peter is not blown away, amazed, mesmerized, shocked, and like why he's not as seduced by the wizard as Lee is or others are?
He's not a woman.
Okay. I don't. Well, the thing that's interesting is, you know, Tom, he's like when we were out in Southern California, I don't know, 3-4 years into it, we weren't making as much money as what we had set out to make, not even close. So I was a little concerned about Tom. So we're driving in the car back from an event. I said, hey, Tom, I just wanted to do a quick check. You know, it's been 3 years, and I was just curious. Like, how do you think our partnership's going? He's like, oh, my gracious, Mark, it is amazing. Like, I crazy. It's so awesome. So I'm like thinking, that's good. Okay. But then I became curious. Like, I didn't know, like, I'm like, why? I mean, that's a good question, right? Like, if I'm doing something right, I want to know why, or if something's being done right so we can keep doing it. He paused and then he chuckled. He says, because I love being around you. Now, I don't get that a lot. Maybe never. I mean, maybe not very many times in my life do people say that. So I'm like really intrigued now. I'm curious. I'm like, really? He's like, oh, yeah. I said, what do you like being around me? He says, I love the way your mind works. He's like, it's insane. Like when we get together and hang out, 6 o'clock in the morning, we have a mastermind group, and your brain is so engaged, and we're coming home at 11 o'clock at night, and your brain is so engaged. Like, I've never met anybody that brain work like your brain is insane. It's crazy. And so the reason Peter's not mesmerized yet, okay, is because he worked for a big company, so he's used to his idea. He's used to being listened to, and people do the work that he directs them to do. But there's not many, like Tom, he had that same exact experience. He got a plaque for it. I mean, he shared that story about where he went out to lunch and he got a plaque for, like, he just told people and he spoke and people did all the work. And that's the way Peter is. So Peter's used to his ideas being heard. So when Peter came up with the idea for the workbook and all of a sudden it just magically appeared, he didn't really have to do anything. It just happened. Most people would be mesmerized by that. Like, really, I just spoke something into existence. I didn't have to do any work at all. Like, I didn't have to do anything. All of a sudden, I had an idea we should have a workbook. I spoke it, and all of a sudden a workbook was there. Like, that's a miracle. But not for Peter, not for Tom. Because they've got... Go ahead.
There is two sides to that. I mean, I wrote down here in my notes onboarding and the definition and understanding the value of what you provide, because not because I'm not familiar with onboarding, because again, big companies do that, but I'd never really thought in detail about the definition, the simple definition. And we're employing a lot of people at the moment in the business we've just opened, and it made me think, I wonder if in our process, whether they meet that simple definition, because as that onboarding statement or definition relates to even the course leverage and how ski gets leverage back, so is it true in the general environment. So I'm sharing that with you, Mark. I think you asked me why I'm sharing that. Because, I'm used to people doing things in a big corporate environment, but I'm constantly looking for a way to find the missing pieces of the puzzle, whether it's regaining leverage that I lost or whether it's getting people in a business into the best position and in the best place in the business that they can meet the objectives. So I wasn't jumping up and down, but that was like a light bulb coming on for me.
Can I say something, Peter?
Sure.
As a byproduct of that, 45% of all new hires, almost half, 45% of all new hires leave within the first 6 months because they weren't onboarded properly.
Yeah, no, I can believe that. I can absolutely believe that. And it's sort of one of these, to Mark's point about being at 40,000 feet and then coming down to ground level, it's a lot of these little things that, are pieces to the puzzle. And when you're chasing after objectives, purpose, goals, targets, you often, these smaller pieces get out of order, or the importance of them being in order gets lost. And when you do that, so you have a vacant position, you need to fill it. That becomes the objective, as opposed to, no, I need to fill it with the right person, doing the right things all the time, or as much of the time as possible. So it's easy to lose sight of those things.
See, I think, Peter, I have been blessed to have the knowledge, wisdom, insight, and now the technology and tools and networks where I can go ahead and bring on the wrong person in a position and I can onboard them to the highest levels better than somebody else that brings on the right person. I think I can bring on the wrong person, but if I bring them on in the right way, they will see greater success than bringing on the right person. That's how powerful I think the systems are.
Well, I would say, the only thing I disagree with there is you bring the right person on with the right system, then you do even better. But certainly if you bring the right person on with no onboarding process, then it can be very destructive.
See, and this is where... Go ahead. See, and this is where big companies, I think, and big everything, big government, big education, big media, big religion, big everything, the reason they get big is by simplifying the process. So they make it easy. And then when people don't think, then they wonder, why aren't they thinking? Because you made the whole process easier. So everybody, like...
Well, Mark, just to interject on that, I mean, I agree with you to a certain point, but I also tell you, if you're looking at companies like Apple or Google or Facebook or even brands, strong brands like a BMW, people want to be part of that culture, so they work harder at trying to fit in. So to the extent that, you know, if you don't have that kind of strong culture in an organization, then you've got a much worse situation, because you've got somebody that might be the right person being left to their own devices and following their own path, as opposed to the one that you're trying to accomplish as a business. So a strong culture can create desire to be part of it, and then the motivation comes from people wanting to try and figure out how to fit in, and that's a little different.
See, and what I'm trying to be a part of is a whole bunch of people who are misfits, who are not trying to fit in and not trying to follow somebody else's path, but they're so brilliant, they're so gifted, they're so skilled that they know how to be selflessly selfish, that they know how to, they don't have to have things defined. They don't have to have a workbook. They don't have to have a definition. They don't have to have a path. They don't have to have a map. I want people, you know, who are like me, that don't need any of that. As a matter of fact, if you have all of that, I don't know. It seems like a boring place to be.
Well, there's a difference between culture and policies.
So, thanks, Peter. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Yep, you do. Anybody else have anything else? We all filled up? Ski, you got anything?
No, good session.
Rosanna, Jill, Elise, anything?
Good. I'm good.
So do you guys think that Jill will be able to nail it? Lou wasn't here today. Will Jill be able to get Lou to listen to this? Will Ski be able to get Murray and Paul to listen to this?
I guess we'll have to report back to the switch and let you know.
Right, so it's leverage. Like you're applying what we're learning when you can get people you don't know to do something. And so then Lou gets Bob and David. So now you've got one ripple and you've got ripple two. Okay, so now you get 7 people going in a direction. Now those 7 people for the blue team, those 7 people then go ahead and each get, 2 people, these ripple 2. So Lou and Ski still, they don't have to, and Jill, the 3 of them help the 4 of these guys get 2 more people. So all 4 of these guys know a lot of people, but they'll have a hard time inviting those people in to the group. Anybody know why?
No, why?
It's the same reason all of you have a hard time inviting people you know in. Do you know why you all have? Like, you all are gaining more value than they are because you're more engaged. You see how you're going to gain benefit to yourself. But just because you gain benefit doesn't mean that the people in your network will gain benefit. Because we all think subconsciously that we're the smartest person in our network, and if we don't get it, nobody else is going to get it. So that's why people don't invite. It's why Tom would have a hard time inviting his whole network, or Peter, or Mike. Like, they'll have a hard time inviting their network to this call, to this program, because subconsciously they think they're the smartest person in their network. And if they don't get it, if they don't understand it, so they don't have confidence in the people around them. And so that's why they won't invite, the same reason. And then if Ski invites people, he's invited people to Coffee Connection, and they don't show up, or they're not consistent. So people don't trust Ski, and Ski doesn't trust people around him, even the closest people to him. So that's where the system comes in place, where if Ski can point somebody to an online system, and the online system sells rather than Ski, because if Ski sells them, then he's going to have to make sure that the system delivers, and that might take a lot of work. So it's like, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I? So once you get these 7 people all really passionate, like Lou, he paid for the course in, I don't know, 2 weeks. But he doesn't understand that his goal of making $1 million after taxes, he hasn't internalized that yet with this course. And so questions? So I believe with the 3, I think Jill is on board, Ski's on board, I think Lou. I think these 3 pouring into these 4, when you get these 4, now what if you don't get one of them? Like, what if Murray doesn't go ahead and, slide in? What if, well, if there's enough leverage, you can lead a horse to water, can't make him drink, but you can put salt in the oats. Murray has his own CPA firm, just started a new CPA firm, and so he thinks he's busy, he's important, he thinks he's got a lot going on, and so all of his clients, like, it's leverage. If Ski leverages that, there's a lot of people, a lot of your clients that would benefit from it. There's a lot of people you could know that would help your practice. There's a lot of help your cash flow of the new company. If Ski finds out his pain, if he finds out where he's at, then Ski can leverage that. So once you get, then you start building a tribe or community or whatever, where now you have a combination of the system and the community and the network. It becomes a culture. So it's a cult. It's like, we are here to gain massive leverage off of one another, and we're working to make sure it's always positive in what we do. And so until the 7 of these get really passionate, it's going to be hard to take it to a third ripple. Now, there's some people out there in the 50-some thousand database. There's probably 10 people or 100 people or whatever in that database that would just listen to the first 7 minutes, listen to the 23 minutes, then listen to the other. And based on that, they're looking, they're searching, they're seeking to find something. That's true with people in your life too. Now it's just a matter of getting them to be able to listen to the right things so they really see and feel and sense what this group is about. All right, you guys are awesome. Do that workbook, do the first 10 pages, come back next week with some really exciting things, and always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. God bless. Have a great day. Bye-bye.